So today, I'm really excited. We have David Harris, who's the editor-in-chief at OpenStax, going to talk with us a little bit about trends in OER. And I'll talk a little bit about David, just to kind of give you some background on him. He hasn't just worked at OpenStax, he has a lot of experience with OER and course learning, textbooks. He's a graduate of the University of Connecticut, has worked extensively in higher education publishing. During his long career, David has served in a range of leadership roles, allowing him to collaborate with the best authors, editorial groups, and media development teams in the industry. At OpenStax, David leads efforts to improve access to high-quality materials by working with authors, developers, and partners to substantially lower costs for students. During his tenure, he has led the development of 29 titles and counting that have saved students $342 million since 2012. As OpenStax continues to expand, David has been instrumental in identifying key areas of growth and improvement in leading OpenStax to a sustainable future through the development of the OpenStax Partner Program. And then after David speaks, we'll have some of our faculty come up and showcase some of their work they're doing for their classes. So join me in welcoming David.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be with you today and talk about trends in OER and what we're seeing across the nation. So I'm the editor-in-chief for OpenStax, and just a few words about OpenStax. We're a non-profit publisher. We're based out of Rice University in Houston, Texas, and OpenStax has been publishing OER in our current form since 2012. We'll get into that. So what I thought we'd do today is provide you with an update on the state of OER and OpenStax today, and some of the major trends that we see. And then finally look at online learning and how technology and OER are starting to converge together. We're seeing quite a lot of developments in that area. Before I begin, does anyone have any questions that you'd be wanting to ask about OER or OpenStax in particular that I can make sure I get to today? Good.
I have a question.
Okay, sure.
In my field, I don't see a lot of materials that I could use right now,
Yep.
so I want to know how to work through that.
And what field are you in?
In art history.
In art history. Okay, and I'll make sure we get to that. Sometimes it's a rights issue. Getting openly licensed content in art history and literature can be very challenging. Okay, so before we begin, first of all, huge congratulations to UT San Antonio. This is a list of the courses that have used or are using OpenStax resources. And this is a very impressive number, to be frank. It shows a great diversity of support. And I think that the grant program has helped. I think the library support and really the engagement of the community and of course the faculty is really impressive. This year alone, if we look at the number of students at San Antonio that are using OpenStax resources, they've saved around $750,000. And we calculate that as about $70 per student per course. And some people say, but the textbooks are $200. Why do you discount it so much? Because some students don't purchase, some students rent, etc. So we try and be very conservative with that number. But you should feel terrific about this. This is a leading position and something that a lot of institutions are striving for. And I think that it's just the beginning. So let's provide you with an OpenStax update here in terms of how are we doing nationwide. Well, it's great news overall. Over 6,100 institutions are using OpenStax resources. This year alone, we're about 2.7 million students in courses using them across our 30 disciplines. So the community has really embraced this. And today, when we go through this, I think you'll see that we're now getting communities of practice around the OER. So it's not just about producing a textbook, it's about creating a whole experience and curriculum for students. And that's very, very exciting. So the frequent question we get, and it came up this morning, well, will OER decline when the grants run out? Because all of the materials that we produce, if you're giving away free textbooks or a free biology book, and there's no charge for the student, and there never will be a charge. Obviously, it takes a grant to develop that. And so what our friends in the publishing industry say, well, just wait until next year, they won't be around. Well, it's not sustainable. Well, the good news is actually it is sustainable. With the level of income that we're getting, which I'll get to in a second, we can maintain the library and improve the books every single year. And we do annual updates. And how do we do that? There's sustainability funding. So OpenStax has partners, we have about 50 ecosystem partners now that provide services around the OER content. Maybe they use OpenStax plus an online homework solution like WebAssign or ExpertTA, which is still greatly reduced. You can still save the students $70, $80 if you go that path. When they sell that component with an OpenStax resource, these organizations, we call them allies, provide a small mission support fee back to OpenStax. And at scale, which we're now at scale, that makes us sustainable. We also do very few new editions. We update them annually, but we were talking about it this morning. College algebra-based physics honestly doesn't change. And you don't need to do revisions every 3 years. And we don't do that. We don't have to go through that expense. We do annual updates of all the titles, but we don't have to go through all the cost of revising them. There's no sales reps. You'll never see an OpenStax sales reps. As we like to say, if they're bringing you donuts, it's probably not OER. There's no physical comp copies. We've greatly reduced that. This is one of the big burdens of the industry. So on 2.6 million students, typically the publishers would probably have to give out around 150,000 free units to generate that amount of sales of those physical books. And guess who pays for those free books? The students do. It is a big part of the textbook cost. So when you get a free book, your students are paying for that. And the community's really responded and said, okay, we can use the digital version, or I'll purchase my own print version. And that really has made OpenStax sustainable. And as I said, no fancy parties or free food, I'm afraid. But can't get everything. And no transparency acetates. It's okay. So let's now evolve into the access piece is rapidly being solved for students. We want to make, you've got at UTSA, you have a high proportion of first generation students, a lot of students on Pell Grants, so access is key to them. And not being able to afford those course materials is a major problem. And it sometimes can be the tipping factor between how many courses they take. And I think together we're solving this. The question is how does OER improve and drive learning? There's a lot of studies going on right now to kind of set the stage for this. So something we do know is that with the high cost of textbook, it has a terribly negative impact on student behavior. 47.6% take fewer courses. Some won't register into a course, or they just won't purchase the course materials. That number gets as high as 70% in cases. And that really puts them at a disadvantage in the beginning of the semester. And that's why I think some are responding with the inclusive access. But that's another whole story. So what's the impact? We are seeing more studies that are being taken. These are just a few studies, and I'll send you the links to this. And so basically what they're showing is that it helps students take an increased number of credits. Obviously, they have the more money they can invest in the courses. Now, this is not the case if only one OER is adopted at a school. It has to be a comprehensive strategy for these numbers to apply. And then lower withdrawal rates too. And that's part of that access at the beginning of the semester. So through 11 peer-reviewed studies of about 48,000 students, 93% of the students did as well or better using OER. So that is really encouraging. Now, sometimes our publishing friends flip that around, and they will say, well, look, if the students are doing as well, let's say the students are doing as well with OER, well, we're going to go through all this work to make the change. You could just continue to do what you're doing. well, I don't know if I buy that. Why would I spend $200 or $180 to get the same result? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But, you know, I guess that's a conversation we don't want to have with them too often. Okay, so this is a very interesting study from University of Georgia that was published last year. 21,000 students. The University System of Georgia has probably the most comprehensive OER initiative in the nation. And they actually rank number 2 of all the systems that we work with in terms of improving access and annual savings for students. But they did this study, and it's interesting. When they looked at it across all students, they saw that the DFW rate decreased by 2.68%. But if you look at the Pell Eligible score, that decreased by negative 4.4, and the part-time students, negative 10%. And then look at the positive impact on the grades. And so this is very, very encouraging. So when you look at it from an equity perspective, OER, and students who are at risk, it has a disproportionate benefit to that group. It's a great equalizer in that regard. And I think you're going to see more and more studies over the next couple of years along these lines. Okay, so the next question we always get on a national level is, who is in control of the courses? So, a disclaimer, OpenStax being based at Rice University, we are 100% supportive of academic freedom. We don't believe OER should ever be mandated or legislated. It's really up to the individual professor to decide what's best for their course. So we actually actively work against those initiatives that try to mandate the use of any course materials. In fact, we see OER as an opportunity to enhance academic freedom. So how does it do it? Well, libraries are at the forefront of curation and adaptation across the country. Very impressive, and we see it all over, that they will work with faculty to help them adapt the OER so it really reflects their teaching and their curriculum. And it provides them with more choice without having to get permission from the content developer. So that's one way. For students, they have the freedom because they have immediate access and permanent access. You mentioned inclusive access earlier. There's a reason why they don't call it inclusive and permanent access. You know why? Because you don't have permanent access. And it's one of the things I've never understood, and I'd always love to ask the publishers this. If I purchase a Kindle version of a closed resource on Amazon, let's say it's a trade book, you know, a best-selling trade book, I own it. Okay, it's the same digital transmission of content, but my textbook, you don't let me own it on my Kindle. Why is that? Why do I have to rent it for a certain amount of time? We just think that's inherently unfair. We think if you purchase it, you should always have access to it. So we are seeing the publishers softening this a little bit, but I think they can go a lot further and offer permanent access to students all the time. The standard scope and sequence of emerging OER, like OpenStax, is going to be a lot more reflective of what is available in your courses. It's going to be much more aligned than it was before, and then you can adapt it locally to really make sure that it works. You have a much greater variety of platform choice now with OER than you do with a proprietary publisher. What does that mean? So if you're teaching intro biology course and you like Campbell Biology and you want to use that with a platform other than Mastering Biology, guess what the answer is? No. Or you like Mastering Biology, but you'd like to use it with a non-Pearson author. Guess what the answer is? No. Okay, OER is different. You can adopt OER, multiple versions of OER, multiple authors of OER, and you can match it to dozens now of platforms. So you have much greater control than you ever had before. And people, once they realize this, they find it quite liberating. And then the ownership of the content, obviously for you, is forever. And I think this is very important because let's say OpenStax goes away. You know, the publishers love saying OpenStax is going to go away. They've been predicting that for a long time. But since it's openly licensed, you actually own it. It's a public property. It's a public good now. And we actually think that knowledge, that basic knowledge, is a public good. And it should remain public. And then moving to a new edition is optional. In some markets, we have to revise them, but it's optional. You always have access to prior editions. So we see OER as really enhancing academic freedom. So let's talk about adaptation. It's very interesting. You talked about the crowdsourcing, because this is actually an example of that. So we have the OpenStax chemistry textbook. This is a general chemistry textbook. Authors out of, original authors out of Purdue. And the University of Connecticut, which has really come on board a lot with OER, has a lot of usage, but they didn't have chemistry. And a lot of students came together, the student government said, oh, we wish we could get access to this in our general chemistry course. But they had a pedagogical difference. They teach that course doing what's called Atoms First. And so the student government actually funded the adaptation of that. And now we have an Atoms First general chemistry book. It was quite amazing, actually. That actually, that made the news. It was so significant that the students invested in that. Now they've been using that for a couple of years. Here's another example from University of Oklahoma. We have a basic introductory statistics book, but they teach many more students in business statistics. And so they adapted it, and now we have introductory business. The point here is that you don't have to settle. You can adapt, and you can really make sure that the OER reflects what you're doing. And the grant program that you have here affords you to be able to do that and provides you with the resources to do it. In addition, what OpenStax can provide you is all of the source files and the source art. So if you do adaptation, you don't have to go and recreate anything. You can really go in and edit it. Localization. Here's an example where it's being localized into Spanish. And then if you go and post it, more and more people are using YouTube to help students instruct. You can go and post it without violating copyright. We know of instances where faculty have taken publisher resources, posted them on YouTube, and get cease and desist orders. Okay, not very friendly. I don't think it's a good way to establish a warm and fuzzy relationship, but they have every right to do it. Because it's all rights reserved. We just think it's better if you have all the rights and not the creator of it. And then another area that we're seeing, we talked about this community of practice. This is an example of OER Commons OpenStax hubs. So the community is coming together in a big way now and developing a lot of different resources around this. It used to be when we started out, the concern was, well, you don't have as much ancillary support as the major publishers do. And in the beginning that was true, but actually now it's different. With physics, we have 148 affiliated resources. These are labs, worksheets, extra problems, PowerPoint slides, simulations that support this book that was created by the community, openly licensed, free for your students to access. We have an incredible wealth of resources available. And these are available now with every single one of our titles. And so if some people ask, well, how can we give back? Well, the first way you can give back is make sure that you assign it to your students so that they can benefit from it. But the second way is if you develop material, put it out into the commons, because then this all grows together and it takes a life of its own. The other thing that we're seeing is as an expanded selection of resources. Great. And so it's not only OpenStax now, and we encourage you to look at all OER materials. This is an example from mathematics. So you have Stitz and Ziegler, Lyrics out of Canada, linear algebra. These are all open resources that you can use. You can go well beyond OpenStax, and we encourage you to do that. And so the overall pressure is on, the prices are coming down. This is a study from AEI. For the first time in 50 years, we're seeing the prices drop. And that's remarkable. And that's another point I'd make. It's sometimes difficult to get OER adopted. You might have a big committee. That sometimes happens. And so the question is, how do we still improve access for students? Well, you just need to say one word to your publishing friend, and guess what that is? OpenStax or OER. We're looking at OER, and you can see a 30% deduction in price very, very quickly. And how do we feel? How does OpenStax feel about that? Terrific, because that's our mission. Our mission is to try and get the cost as low as possible for students. So if you're still using a proprietary content base, and it's just difficult to make that change, just mention OER, and you can still help your students. So what does permanent disruption mean like? Now that there is disruption, total disruption in the marketplace, it means that no one's locked into a specific author or platform. Students have 100% control. You have free adaptation, and we have increased competition in this dynamic marketplace. We've moved from this monolithic model where too few control too much to a market is much more distributed. Drives choice, innovation, affordability, etc. We have to keep nurturing this because it's actually a very fragile thing. And that's one of our key drivers. So let's close out here with technology, because technology is playing an increasing role in all of our classes. Blended technology in particular. And we know it's not just about a textbook anymore. We use the word textbook, but that's all encompassing. We mean the experience, the curriculum experience for students. So here's an example of just a few from mathematics: WebWorks, Assessments, GeoGebra, D2L. You have, non-mathematics, Canvas. A lot of open code, open resources that can be used for local use at a fraction of the cost of proprietary. OER embedded into LMS. You use Blackboard here, right? Okay. This is an example of a Canvas integration that the entire community college district of California did with OpenStax resources. They took all of our materials and put them into Canvas cartridges so that it could just be plug and play, and it works beautifully within Canvas. And we also have Blackboard cartridges too. And down at the module level, everything is created so it's very modular, and we could get into that later if we wanted to. But technology challenges do remain in regards to learning technologies, online homework platform, courseware, etc. So with technology, balancing skills, modeling, and reasoning. This is very important across many domains. Technology is better actually at assessing skills than it is at assessing reasoning and modeling. And how do you balance those in very large courses? Configuration requirements can vary greatly. If you're using an LMS and additional courseware, those two need to sync up, and that configuration varies by campus to campus. That's a major challenge. Rules-based legacy systems are limiting. What do I mean by that? In, let's say, physics, for example, you could have a response, a student could provide a response in a form that has two equivalent equals, but if the system is very rules-based, it will only accept one. Or in mathematics, there are multiple steps you could do to arrive at a response, and they're all mathematically reasonable, but rules-based systems will only accept one path. It's not very natural, and so this is a challenge with the technology. So the other thing is increasing complexity with technology. The truth of the matter is in proprietary or legacy systems, it's market share gains that are driving the technology development. What do I mean by that? So they come to UTSA, you've got 1,000 students in your course, and you say, I've got to have X functionality. And the legacy provider will say, I'll get that for you. Now they go over to TAMU, and they say, well, I need X, Y, and Z. And they say, oh, well, I'll get that for you. So then you get these systems that get enormous and get very difficult to maintain. And the problem is you are paying for all of the functionality even though you may only use 20% of it. And so one of the advantages of being a nonprofit is what I call the scarcity of resources, in that it allows us, when we're thinking about new technologies, to focus on that 20% that you really need, and we don't need to provide any more. And if you need more than that, and then you can expand out into that ecosystem. Balancing efficacy data with privacy. This is a major issue, one that we're encouraging everyone to think about, especially with open data policies. If you're using proprietary software or courseware in your courses, You're rapidly entering a period in which the vendor will know more about your students than you do. Think about that. The vendor knows more about your students than you do. How do you feel about that? What are they doing with that data? Who are they sharing that data with? This is especially important if you're signing long-term contracts. It's something that's going to come about. There's going to be major issues around this in the next 18 months. Why? There's going to be some type of data breach, or there's going to be some selling of data, and it's all going to come to the fore. So remember, you heard that here first. Data privacy is critically important. Subscription costs are steadily increasing. And then the final one here is very difficult to solve, maintaining academic integrity with technology. If you go in today, if you go into an OpenStax calculus book and you take the problem and you put it into Google, you will get the answer to that specific question within 4 seconds. The same is true if it was non-open resources. And so you can go and do great on your homework, and then you don't do so great on your summative assessment. So that's a big problem, and we don't have the answer to that one. And it's something that we have to think about when we're developing new pedagogies. So just closing up here. So what will the OpenStax technology priorities be? Well, learning is going to be the priority, and we've always said that from the beginning with OpenStax. Free is not the priority, learning is, and it is the same. Technology is not the priority, learning is. We'll always make sure that the content remains open and adaptable for you. It's going to support accessibility requirements. We're going to try and utilize open code as much as possible so that you can configure it more easily to your institution. And we're going to pursue sustainable low-cost models with access until students pass. It's not possible for a nonprofit to develop commercial-grade courseware that is free. So the question is how low can we get it with all of the materials? We're hoping we can keep it under $25. And then non-proprietary, open to share the unique components with it with the entire community, which will be revolutionary. And so I think you're going to see this coming online probably, in 2019. So we're excited about that. So that kind of gives you the overview. Did we do it in 20 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. Any questions? Do we have time for one question? Okay. No questions. Oh yeah, one. Okay.
Okay, so you were talking about the textbooks are low cost to no cost.
They're no cost.
And then the supporting technology, so things like homework systems or so what does it look like now? You said that you're trying to keep it as low cost as possible.
Yeah.
Who is actually creating those systems?
That's a great question. So what discipline are you in?
I'm in languages.
Okay, languages. Okay, so I'm not as familiar with those markets. Let me pick one that I do know. So let's say physics would be an example. So we have a partnership with WebAssign that also works with all the other major publishers. And it's online homework. They go in, they get a problem, most likely from the textbook. They try and solve it. It grades it incorrectly, and then they go and they get a grade. It's part of their grade. Those resources, when they're bundled with OER, sell for about $45, $50. When it's bundled with a commercial text, it's about $125. So you still save $70. So what I was describing there is a model in which we take different components, open source code, maybe we take something from OpenEdX for the management piece. We'll work with some third-party partner that might have something that allows students to, that's got AI behind it, to answer questions. We assemble these together, and as a nonprofit, and we don't have salespeople, we can get that cost down to $20, $25. So we're running experiments now on this, and we'll have a lot more information on that next year. But it needs to look like basically what we want to do is we want to deliver an experience as better than a legacy system at a fraction of the cost, but we can't do it for free. That's the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding correctly, these are systems that already exist with the proprietary system that are being adapted for the OER textbooks.
Great. So they're proprietary systems. that they say, okay, instead of using a closed textbook, I'm using an open textbook, and that means I'll embed it in it, I'll take all the problems, all the examples, the simulations, etc. So they're reducing their cost because they don't have to develop the content, and they're passing that cost savings on to students. Yeah.
If one's using an open textbook as a supplement to class notes,
Yep.
there's no problem with that. Just give links to students and say, here you go.
Okay, absolutely, yeah, and that's a lot. When we first started, that was a huge use case. People, we were new. They wanted to make sure it met the needs, and so that's a great point. And I didn't make it. I should have made it earlier. So we talked about if you cannot get to agreement to move to OER, how do we still help students? You use the word OER. You mention it to the publisher, and they'll lower the cost. I guarantee it. The second thing that you can do is you can give students a choice. We haven't been in this forced adoption model really for that long in the history of education. You can make the OER recommended, make it a recommended reading. Just expose it to the student and see how they like it. That will at least give the students who can't afford the materials in the first 2 weeks of the class before they get their Pell Grant check, at least access to resources. And since most of today's new OER is aligned, a scope and sequence, the students won't notice the big difference. Now, they may come and ask you, well, do I really have to spend the $300 or the $250 on the economics book? And then, that's a conversation you can have with them. But just make it recommended if you can't come to an agreement. That's fine.
No, I'm using it as a supplement to
Okay,
the
that's
materials,
perfect.
so
Yeah.
they're not paying anything.
That's perfect. That's great. 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 I look forward to see the actual examples in use.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.